This podcast is a proud member of the UUOP network.
This is episode 636 of the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast for November 5th, 2024. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. Of course, I am here with Tracy.
Hello everyone.
I'm Michelle.
Hey!
Chris isn't here because he made a last-minute trip to Halloween Horror Nights. They took the baby. It's been an interesting trip, apparently. Much more of he said it hasn't been a vacation, it has been a trip. So unfortunately, he wasn't here last week, and obviously he's not here this week either. But he has left us his Halloween Horror Nights ranking list, which is what we are here for.
Yes.
Yay!
So before we get started, obviously, go how would Tracy and Lee done? We haven't been, but we have watched we've watched 3 run-throughs of YouTube videos, so we can still get involved. But before we get started,
UUOP is brought to you by the Producers Club. Join today and get bonus episodes, chance to be guest host, be part of our awesome Facebook community, and more. Head over to uUOP.supercast.com to subscribe. Shameless plug.
So I said I was going to clip that out and use it because it's the best thing ever.
God, that's brilliant.
Oh, we're going to do this slightly differently, we've decided as well, to manage people's time and stuff, because I know these house ranking episodes usually go on forever. Our 10 to 6, we're giving ourselves 60 seconds. So I nicked this off our good friend Blake Braswell's Brutiful Game. They do a 2-minute drill. So they get 2 minutes to talk about a game, and then it's done, and they move on to the next one. So we're going to do the same. So each of us is going to get 60 seconds to talk about our 10 to 6 houses.
I didn't know how to take notes.
So we will start off with our number 10s, and I will begin with Chris. So Tracy, do you want to read Chris's out first, please?
I will. Chris has gone with the Museum Deadly Exhibits. And he says, aesthetically, it was very pleasing, but the house felt kind of flat. Thank you, Chris.
You see, I've seen our listener house rankings at the moment, so I know where a lot of these are. I'm going to go to you next.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to leave Michelle till last, actually, because Michelle's actually the only one of us here that's actually been through these houses.
Okay.
Very, very true.
From the second you read your name,
I don't need 60 seconds.
You're going to get 60 seconds.
Yeah, I don't need that. I'll be looking if I need 6. Okay, my number 10 is Triplets of Terror. I was saying before we started recording, just because it's in 10th place doesn't mean it's last, doesn't mean it's bad. It was a strong year. It's just how it fell in the rankings. And throughout all of our watches, it was consistently at the bottom. It was one of my most anticipated as well, so I'm disappointed.
Is that it?
I told you I didn't have a lot to say.
You've got 38 seconds left yet.
Should I sing a song?
I mean, you can do it.
I'm not going to. I'm not saying you can have silence then. Go make yourselves a cup of tea.
Triplets of Terror was that?
Yes, Triplets of Terror.
Okay, I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, I'll just stop that then.
Yeah.
So moving on, my number 10 is I agreed with Chris. I have Museum Deadly Exhibits. And again, we've just watched YouTube videos. So I had an idea of what this house was going to be, and it was nothing like what I thought it was going to be. I wanted the house to feel like a museum, and it didn't.
You're correct.
Yes. I'm sure you'll talk about it. I'm expecting you to have this in the same place, but anyway, we'll find out. It didn't feel like a museum. It felt like a Halloween Horror Nights house, which I know it is, but I expected it to feel... I know a lot of people went in kind of hoping it was going to be Night of the Museum, and it was nothing like that. I think if you didn't know what the story was, I don't necessarily think you would know what it was walking through. I mean, there was... some like spiel going in about the rotting stone and going through it was weird. I expected museum exhibits to be like kind of haunted, and it wasn't really. I think that's what a lot of people expected. I think what the blurb told you and what it was, there was a real disconnect there. So there you go, my number 10.
That was great.
Seeing as that's in my right ear, I thought Michelle had just been murdered.
I mean, it is a Monday, but I'm not quite screaming yet. So,
Michelle, you're number 10.
Oh, Yes. Okay. So my number 10 is actually going to be the same as Tracy, Triplets of Terror.
Wow.
Yeah. So my first impression of this during Premium Scream Night was awful. Like it just, I don't know if it was supposed to be campy, but it didn't quite feel campy. But there was like some elements of gore, but it was like really stupid fake gore. And the storyline, unless you knew the storyline, it didn't translate. It was just odd. Okay. So then I went through it just a couple of weeks ago and on an RIP tour with a tour guide who told us the full story. And it made a little bit more sense then. I was like, all right, let me give it another try. Went in. I mean, it was okay. The storyline did make it better, but it was still just kind of stupid to me.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how much your Premium Scream Night actually plays into your rankings. Because obviously you got a very different experience from most other people going to Horror Nights this year.
Well, I got to experience. I got to experience everywhere. Like I got to experience Premium Scream, a private RIP, and I did go through just and wait in lines as well. So,
you slummed it?
No, wow.
I did. I slummed.
She had to pay for those Epic Universe tickets and that Helios room, those 3 nights at Helios somehow. Moving on to our number 9s. Michelle, would you like to let everyone know what Chris's number 9 was?
Chris's number 9 is Triplets of Terror. He says, not a bad house, but felt very repetitive. It would honestly make a great Rob Zombie movie.
That's what I said from the bump, didn't I?
Yeah.
It felt like a 3 from Hell, House of a Thousand Corpses type thing.
And to be honest, it was repetitive. That was the storyline. So the kids were growing up because every 10 years they come back to reenact the murder of their families.
Oh, yeah.
So it was repetitive.
Okay. Tracy?
My number 9 is the Museum Deadly Exhibits.
Okay.
For what's been said, it just that title promises more. And like I said about Triplets, just because it's low down doesn't mean it was a bad house. But it just didn't excite me as much as the other ones did. It just seemed to fall a bit flat. It missed something, and I don't know what. If I'd been there in person, maybe I could have picked up on it, but yeah, that's my number 9.
Michelle, was this house in the space that The Darkest Deal was in last year?
That would be a Kenneth question because they routed that differently this year, so I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it was.
The entrance to this line was Simpsons.
Okay, yeah. Which, it probably will have been then, because you think Darkest Deal was that first house just behind there. I'm liking this, by the way. So my number 9 is a new one we have not talked about yet, and that is Major Sweets Candy Factory, or whatever it's called. It was, so through my first run through and my second run through, it got slowly further down my list. I will agree with a lot of what other people have said. It's definitely the best house that they've put in that space. And for those that don't know, it was in the Fast and Furious queue, because it didn't feel disjointed like Chucky did last year and like the Blumhouse house did previous year. I thought there was some really good... one of the things Tracy and I noticed walking through, we didn't walk through them, did we? We watched them. No. We sat on the couch and watched them. There's a lot more, not static figures, but if there was static figures, they had some sort of actuator in them to make them move.
Yeah. And
this house had a lot of that. I thought the theming was great right the way through. Again, we only watched videos from opening night. Can't think what she's called. The woman... Major Sweets is Mrs. Candy or whatever she's called. Is that what she's called? Mrs. Sweets. There was 2 in the house. One was brilliant, and the other one was crap. Sorry. There you go. There's 60. You can see who's the talker and who's not the talker. It's like, I don't need 60 seconds, and I'm still going at the end of 60 seconds.
I know, you've been cut off 2 out of 2.
That's funny.
Michelle.
All right. My number 9 is also with Tracy, Museum Deadly Exhibits. As everybody said, I really had high hopes for this one. I, too, thought it was going to be more like Night at the Museum, where a lot of things like that I thought were going to be static turned out to be, alive and moving and scaring me. I thought there were going to be a lot of like really interesting scares in this, and there really weren't. There was a lot of like, instead of things or like possession happening to the things that were in the museum, it was more like a curse was released from this thing, and the curse was like these vines and plants, and it was just weird.
Yeah.
The iteration of the curse. So the plants didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And it kind of overtook the fact that there were like some really pretty costumes. There were a couple of costumes where scare actors were dressed as like a statue. And they would pop out of a boo hole looking like that. And I'm like, it would have been cooler if they had just been standing there.
Yeah.
I think there was one there was one right at the beginning with the like the sign-in desk where it was I don't know what it was. I thought it was good because it was laid down on the desktop and then would pop up because there was a guy who was like a museum guy.
I'm thinking of a different one.
That one was pretty good, but the rest,
It was.
Okay. We're rattling through these. I like it. Moving on to number 8. Tracy, would you like to read Chris's number 8?
I will. Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. And he says, it was a great entrance and start to a house, but then slowly dies off. One of the lesser favourite monsters' houses over the years. So...
I'm interested to see where everyone's got this.
Yeah.
Tracy.
I have got, at number 8, Major Sweets Candy Factory. I mean, it looked brilliant. It was bright. It was colourful. It was everything I love in that sort of house. You know, it wasn't an out-and-out comedy house, but it was a lighter-hearted one. And I think it's a good balance to have. Like I say, some of the scare actors that we saw were kind of dialing it in, Mrs. Sweets. In particular, one of them, her actions were great, but for the volume of dialogue and everything, her lips were barely moving. And it's like, come on, you've got to live this. And there was a few moments like that I noticed in more than one of the run-throughs we watched. It looked good. Obviously, I could see a storyline, but it wasn't a strong storyline I could see at the time. It's just, kids eating sweets and, well, being kids. Was that the house where we saw 11?
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, it looked good. I think I would have enjoyed it if I'd been through it.
It wasn't as good as the scare zone, let's put it that way.
That was a good
scare zone. But that seems to be a theme. Houses that were scare zones first generally don't translate well to houses, in my experience.
Interesting.
My number 8 is another new one, Slaughter Cinema 2.
What? Wow.
Wait, what?
I mean, this has always floated around that last couple. It just didn't do it for me. I think, like, I've seen the listener rankings for this and it is all over the place, and I think it comes down to the fact of those that went through the first one and those that didn't. And I think if you don't have that nostalgia for the first house, then it's kind of lost on you. You don't get, for me personally, you don't get to spend enough time in each of those scenes. It's like, right, we're going to give you, I can't even remember what the Christmas one, or the Mardi Gras murders, or the stripper. I want a whole stripper mummy's house. By the way, that was phenomenal.
And what was the sharky one called?
Chum, Blood and Chum. You just don't get to spend enough time in them. It's like you're in one room and then you're out into the next one. And I kind of wanted to see a little bit more because the ones that didn't hit, and the ones that did.
I have thoughts that I will talk about when I come to it.
I see why your reaction's like, holy crap.
I'm stunned.
It just didn't do it for me. Michelle.
All right. My number 8 is Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that says everything.
That's a lot. But considering this is the first all-female cast, I'm super proud of that. I think that's amazing. I don't think it was the scare actor's fault at all. I just did not like the storyline. It wasn't scary to me. So in this house, Saskia Van Helsing was trying to take out the monsters, and I don't know, it just wasn't scary at all. And the scares that were there weren't very creative. There was a whole lot of dead space, where there was literally nothing happening at all, where you're just kind of walking through and hearing the story above you, or Saskia talking or whatever. I don't know. It just wasn't scary. It just felt like I was walking through some little short movie thing. I don't know. It's weird.
I mean, we'll talk about it soon. Is all I will say.
It kind of like Poseidon's Fury. I feel like I was walking through like a Poseidon's Fury. It just wasn't scary.
Yeah. I have thoughts. This is higher up on my list than I initially had it. I will say that. Moving on to number 7. Michelle, will you read Chris's number 7, please?
Yes. Number 7, Chris has Goblin's Feast. He says, it is a really fun house. Felt like a party inside a pub. I relate it to how the Weekend House was. Not scary, just fun to walk through.
So why is it number 7? You and I will talk, sir.
I just scrolled forward. Yeah. Whoa.
I'm not going to say anything right now of where it is, but on my second run through of these, it was my number 1.
Oh.
Tracy.
I'm just reeling. Wow. Christopher. What are we on? 7? My number 7 is Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. A lot of what's already been said. Like Michelle says, all-girl cast. Super proud of that. Just didn't quite deliver. There seemed to be some, like Michelle says, using the word dead. There was just some some downtime in it. It seemed to be like most of the other houses are just constant all the way through. There's something going on. And watching it, I was finding that my attention was drifting, which isn't good. I'm sure obviously walking through my attention wouldn't drift, but it just seemed to miss something. So it's in 7th place for me.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to talk
I feel
about
bad
it.
putting that in 7th place.
I'm surprised
It's
that
your number 1, isn't it?
I'm surprised how far up on mine it actually is at this point, to be fair.
Is that because it's an all-girl house?
No.
Oh, okay.
My number 7 is, and it's weird, I went looking at Chris's list where I've got this, A Quiet Place.
Oh.
And I know this is one, I've spoken to enough people about it, I know this is one to get the full realization of what this house is, you need to walk through it. Because it's all about that soundscape, completely different, and you're never going to get that watching a YouTube video. I thought a lot of the alien animatronics were a bit wonky, to be fair, but apparently I've been told they are much better in person. They need to be, because it wasn't great. I thought the first half of the house was definitely much stronger than the second. I think the first lends it, because obviously the first half is the first film and it lends itself much more location-wise to that. And then once you go into that second part of the house where it goes into the second film, it's kind of a little just generic. It doesn't like, oh, where are we? There's like that room with the like the lockable bomb shelter thing in it that we've got there. It just didn't hit it for me, and I'm disappointed because I wanted it to be so much better. But again, I think it's one of those that you need to go through. Michelle.
Okay. My number 7 is Major Suites. It's kind of funny that we all, like, even though you guys didn't go, we all tend to kind of have the same houses around the same areas. So Major Suites Candy Factory was okay. The first time I went through it, I had a terrible run through. So much so that even on premium Scream Night, I was like, it's not worth it to walk over there and go back through it again. But then on my next visit, we had some pretty good run throughs. It was cute. It was funny. I loved Major Suites and interacting with him. There were some GATs there, some guest activated triggers, and one of them was on his desk. So if you pushed it, if you put your hand in his candy bowl, and his interaction was kind of funny.
Okay.
So there were some funny moments. And it was definitely a better use of that queue, of that location, 100%. So it was fun. It was okay. It was a good, like, middle of the road standard house.
Yeah.
But nothing to scream home about.
I think this year there wasn't a bad, Tracy and I, again, having only watched videos of them, there wasn't a bad house. No. I don't think. I'm actually quite devastated that we're not out this year, because it looks a really solid year for houses. Where there wasn't one, like Chucky, everyone knew that Chucky last year was like, that's 10 without a doubt. Like the fact that on terrible. Our RIP tour, it was the only house we didn't do twice.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a house like that this year.
No.
Okie dokie. Moving on to number 6. Tracy, will you read Chris's out, please?
I will. Chris has Monstrous in 6th place. A house with so much going on, at some point too much, but there were tons of puppets and animatronics. The best part was the room with a bird creature and a wretched smell.
Okay.
Why is it in 6th then? That's a good write-up.
That surprises me for Chris.
But he did, no, because he did like Chupa. He had this low down on his hype list though, and we commented at the time for how high he had Chupacabra. I was surprised at how low he had this.
Yeah.
Maybe now that he has a newborn baby, it hit too close to home.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Tracy.
Yes. Number 6 for me is Slaughter Cinema 2. Like you said, I think not experiencing the first one, you're missing out on some things here. It like you say, there were scenes, so it was mini houses really.
Yeah.
It felt like a test bed. See which ones hit for the future, which I think is quite a great idea. I think it's a great idea to do that.
It's kind of what they did with the first one.
Yep. I really want to see the Blood and Chum.
Of course.
I would just want to sit and pet that big shark. I was pleased to see there was no tortoise. Quite happy about that. I mean, it looked fun, but like you say, there wasn't enough space and time to get a feel for each one before you were through into the next one.
Yeah.
But the sets look good. So, and it looked quite packed with things. So, middle of the road one
That
for me.
scares me every time.
I'm never going to complain because, look, my favourite house of all time was born out of Slaughter Cinema 1, so you never know what you're going to get out of this. My number 6 is Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines.
Okay.
And the one thing that Tracy and I said about this house when we watched it from the first time to the last time was kind of what you said, Michelle. There's just nothing going on. It was, don't get me wrong, it was stunning. That facade walking in with the snow and the grave and the entrance into like the tomb was exactly what you would expect from a Universal Monsters house. Phenomenal.
But that shouldn't be the best bit.
And it probably was.
Yeah.
But like going through it, that it was all like it was gorgeous from start to finish, but there was just nothing going on in that house. There was too much of Saskia and not enough. I think the walkthrough we watched on Saturday night, I saw one daughter of Frankenstein.
Yes,
one. I think we only saw one mummy and maybe a couple of brides.
Yeah,
and it's I would say not maybe 70% Saskia Van Helsing and then 30% everyone else. There just wasn't enough of what you would expect from that.
We want the everything else, not Saskia.
Yeah.
Whereas,
there was a lot of Saskia and they even had an opportunity to have different endings, and they didn't do that. Saskia died at the end every single time.
Really? Yeah, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
It had so much potential, and for how good the houses have been this last couple of years. I mean, everyone complained. Everyone who said there was dead space in Unmasked last year.
That'd be a good house.
Then this, it probably would actually. This one blew it out of the water as far as dead space go. It was so disappointing, especially because they've really knocked it out of the park the last 2 years for me.
Yeah.
Leading into Epic Universe as well with Dark Universe, I think. Misstep. Michelle.
Yes. My number 6 is sadly A Quiet Place. So I had this one, I think, in my number 1 hype. But they just did not do what I was really hoping they would do. They didn't pull off the silence very well. And of course the people that work there, why can I not think? My tour guide, some of the team members, like they all mentioned like, yes, it's a quiet place, but you're still going to hear like ambient noise. Well, yes, but I don't know. They just still didn't pull it off. So it wasn't us that were triggering the monsters.
Right.
Really at all. And I think they had like some really good opportunities to make that happen for us, like in terms of maybe having us walk through different like screens that would automatically make noise, or find moments where they could have allowed us to sneak through silence. But if we accidentally ran into something, I don't know, there could have been more chances for them to create the story and put us in the story as opposed to what they did. It just was meh.
That's what I said when we did our hype list for this. It has the potential
to be
amazing, but also the potential to be kind of And unfortunately, it seems to be the latter.
Brave one to take on, though.
Yes, I mean, that's what I was going to ask before we go to the ad break, Michelle. How different was it going through just you and Chris are on Premium Scream then? Did it make any difference?
No, it made no difference whatsoever.
Really? See, that I would have thought would have been ideally set up for you to have just gone through, the two of you. But
no, the scares were not guest activated by any stretch of the imagination.
It was a typical Horror Nights house then. Scare, repeat, scare, repeat.
I guess it's difficult though to tailor when you've got a conga line.
It is. Right, we will take a quick break and we'll be back with our 5, 2, 1.
I wish to go to Scotland.
They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Where can our vacation wizards take you? Just tap the port key at portkeyvacations.com and let the magic begin.
Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing our look at our rankings for the Halloween Horror Nights 33 houses from this year, and we are moving on to our number 5. And we're taking off our 1 minute drill, even though I kind of liked it.
We are.
But yes, moving on to number 5. Michelle, then, will you read Chris's out, please?
Number 5, let's see. In what?
Yep, I know.
Christopher. Christopher's number 5 is Insidious. Universal really went all out with this house. From the entrance with the giant door to the ending with the curtains and tons of jump scares. I know a lot of people ranked it much higher on their list, but I don't have any attachment to the IP, so I just took it for what it was and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. And that's the thing he said when we did our hype list, that he's never seen the film, so he has no attachment to it whatsoever.
That makes a big difference.
And it does.
Not really, though, because it's been a while now since I've gotten like truly scared in a house. And the first few times I walked through this house, it was terrifying. Like the amount of scares was unrivaled. I can't think of another house that I've ever been through that had this many scares.
Okay, we will talk about it later more, I'm sure. Tracy.
Yes. Number 5 for me is A Quiet Place.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, like we were saying, I was quite intrigued by how they were going to do this, but they just, as I said, just a general Horror Nights house. I started counting animatronics versus human actors, because I noticed that the first few scenes of this were animatronic heavy. And like we said, apart from like the flappy bits on the heads, they didn't really move that much. And it was kind of like, oh, well, that's scary. It's just stood there.
That flappy bit was a bit weird as well.
You know, but they were weird in the film.
No, anyway.
But it did look a bit robotic.
Yes.
It took maybe 2 or 3 scenes before we had the run-throughs we saw, before there was the first human scare actor in there.
It was the girl in the cornfield.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I kept count, and actually, by the time we got at the other end, it was equal. I think it was 13 of each. I mean, it looked like the movies.
You're being very kind of, and you've got it at number 5.
Well, there was no, as far as I'm aware, as far as I'm concerned, really, there were no bad houses. It was just, this is where it landed. I don't know, because I didn't experience it. It's difficult to talk about something you didn't actually experience. I'm going on what I saw.
Yeah.
It looked like I would have enjoyed it, but I also noticed a lot of things that I would have come out going, yeah, that was a bit...
We're terrible,
and
that's the difference.
But this is the thing. This is like when we say, if you've got a good story about a team member, pass it on, because people complain. You remember the negatives more than you do the positives.
Yeah.
It's what's happened here for me.
You still got it at number 5.
I have.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No.
But you're talking about the negatives, and yet
I know,
it's
but
number 5.
It's because I've heard everybody else talking about the negatives, and that's what's stuck in my head. I do wish there'd been like a silent room a silent corridor to pass through.
Yeah, there wasn't,
like
Michelle, was there?
There
Like in Graveyard Games.
Yeah, there was a small one towards the beginning, but it was inconsequential. Like it didn't.
Right.
I wanted more of that.
Yeah, for me, that's something that will be better towards the end after
Yes.
you've gone through, you've had all the jumps, you're a bit
Yep.
jumpy and everything. To be honest, like I said, after we watched that last run through of everything, I could have done with watching it a second time because you watch all of those houses back to back and everything.
But that's how you would
melds.
experience it.
Well, you wouldn't, because you'd have a little walk to the next one. You'd be stood in line for 40 minutes
Well,
and you'd have
no,
a
we
drink
wouldn't.
and a
R.I.P.
wee
to,
and,
that's not strictly true.
you know. But still.
I don't think we'd be doing one of them again at those prices, by the way.
Okay. Anyway, it's at number 5, so shut up.
Okay, my number 5 is, I think this was the one that jumped up the most from my hype list to my actual list, and that is Triplets of Terror.
What?
Wow.
It really did it for me.
Weirdo.
I think it's funnily enough, it's the one house on all 3 of our run-throughs that stayed in the same place.
It was for me
number
as well.
5 in every list I did after each run-through. I thought it was really good. I thought I loved the masks. I loved the masks
I
that the
did love
kids
the
had
masks,
on.
yes.
I thought the settings for all the kills were great. I thought some of the kills were awesome. I loved that the happy birthday sign in one of them was done in intestines. It just, I don't know, there was nothing particularly stand out about it. It was just a really good house. And probably, I was going to say it's the best original this year. It's not. We're going to talk about that
Okay.
later. But it just, nothing particularly stand out, but I just thought it was a really solid, gory Halloween Horror Nights house that another one that I'm actually quite gutted that I'm not going to get to go through this year.
Uh-huh.
Haha.
Oh.
Michelle.
All right. My number 5 is Goblin's Feast.
Okay.
And that's just because that's where it fell. I really enjoyed Goblins every time. This was kind of my funny house of the year, the campy one that was just silly and fun. There were some really big moments in there, which were cool to see. And then there was another really cool moment that our RIP guide pointed out. There were actually 2 things. One, when you were entering the building, the facade where it said Goblin's Feast,
Oh, yeah.
or whatever it said, behind that it said, what did it say? Human people butcher?
Something,
or human butcher,
I can't
something
remember
like
now.
that. Yeah, so you had to look up and look behind the sign to see it there. And then also there's a point in the house towards the beginning where you're supposedly battling or a giant is coming after you.
Uh-huh.
And you see the giant's big hand come out, which is really, really freaking cool. But then just past that, if you look up there was a hole in the, I guess you were supposed to be underground or whatever the heck you call that thing. But there was a hole in the facade. You look up and there's actually a screen up there that shows the giant's actual face. So you can actually see the giant up above you. Very cool. Super cool thing that you wouldn't know is there unless you happen to look up, but and something they didn't have to do.
It was Human Chop House, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Human Chop House, yeah. So there were some really cool big moments, and then the mayor goblin guy at the end was really funny and fun.
Oh my goodness.
He is the little boo of this year.
Yeah.
I think he could end up becoming a character unto himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was funny. So it was just a fun house with some really fun moments. I wouldn't call it scary, but it made me laugh every time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to number 4.
Number 4.
Tracy, would you read Chris's out, please?
Yes.
I'm surprised he's got this high up.
So yes, Chris has Major Sweets Candy Factory at number 4. I think I had this ranked lower on my list, so that may have added to ranking it so much higher because of expectations. Had a lot of fun in this house, tons of things to look at.
Tons of things to look at.
That's low criteria.
Isn't that every house? There's tons of things to look at. Sorry, Chris. Sorry, Alexa, don't tell him. I was going to say, sorry, Chris, he won't listen, but Alexa might tell him. I love him, really. Tracy.
Of course, yes. Number 4 for me is Insidious.
Wow.
Don't you wow me. I've seen what you've been doing. Don't you dare wow me.
Tell me why this is so low down on your list, dear.
Because there's 3 that I like better. Simple. It looked really good. It was absolutely rammed with things going on. There was one run towards the end where we saw people and it was literally just bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yes.
it looked claustrophobic at times. It seemed to, because I said at the beginning, it seems very bright.
Yeah, because it starts
And
off.
That's what I said. It starts off like, it's like really bright and open, it felt. And then you get into the further and it's like dark and claustrophobic and...
Because you get the house ghosts, don't you? And then move into the further.
And it looked fantastic. It looked like everything I wanted for an Insidious house. Because you know how much I love those films.
Oh, yes. Well, the first two specifically.
Yeah, but I'll still watch the others. But it's in number 4 because 3, 2, 1, I like better.
Okay.
There was something else I was going to say about this house and I can't for the life remember what it was.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about it again, so if you remember, just jump on in.
Okay.
I'm sure me and Michelle are going to talk about it much later on.
Much later on.
Well, I think Michelle's already shown a hand, and I haven't. I've kind of... Anyway, so my number 4 is... This was hard because on my first run-through, this was my number 1. And I was surprised because I had it very low down on my hype list. And then after the second run-through, it went down to number 2, and then it settled in at the end at number 4, and that is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
What? Oh my god! Sorry, see, we won't do that.
Yeah, but you're gonna when we get onto the house, like the listener rankings list, you're gonna see you're the anomaly, not me.
All I'm going to say is, why? Why 4?
Because the 3 above it are so much better.
How funny that. Wait,
So
there's an echo
much
in
better.
here.
No, so much better. This was for everything I said that I wanted that first house to be in 2019. This was it. It was a quintessential Ghostbusters house. It was, they even, like, not only just doing stuff from Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, there was Vigo from Ghostbusters 2, there was Pterodogs from the first one, the pink slime from the second one. They still managed to incorporate everything from all of those movies. And it was just, I loved the Frozen scene from the beginning was spot on. The facade with the digital projection on it freezing was so good. The Ray at the beginning in Razor Cult Books was so good. It was just, they even had a James A. Cast. I would have liked them to have used James A. Caster's voice. It didn't, because I think he's hilarious. About 1 million little mini Stay Puft, and some of them even moved, which I thought was above and beyond. It was just a really, really good Ghostbusters house. Again, I wish I'd got to see this one and not this one from 2019.
But it's in 4th place. After
yes,
that
because
gushing
if
review.
you're going to hear me gush about this, wait until I get into the next ones.
Oh, man. I'm going to be here forever.
Michelle.
My number 4 is also Ghostbusters, again, just because that's where it fell. I, as everybody knows, did not really enjoy the first iteration of Ghostbusters. This one I did. I actually had a lot of fun in this one. I loved all the little Stay Puft minis. They were so cute. I tried to count them every time I went through.
Did you too? And I did not tell you how many there was.
I'd never found out, darn it.
Oh, I should have asked him.
There were some, again, big moments. I really, after Dead Man's Pier, I really appreciate big moments in houses. The facade of the firehouse in this one was the tallest facade, the tallest set they've ever done in a Horror Nights house. Okay. Yeah. And yes, it was even bigger than Dead Man's Pier. Dead Man's Pier was apparently used forced perspective. And they told me how tall the firehouse was, but I don't remember what it was. I loved the big tall Garakas. The one at the very end, like after you're exiting the house, got me almost every time. You would think I would have remembered he was there.
I love it when they do that.
But I didn't. And I don't know. It was just fun. I loved the ecto in there that comes out at you. The characters were all really cool and well cast.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just a cool house. I liked it.
Yeah. Like I say, when it sounds bad, but when you say it does exactly what you would expect it to do, that's not a bad thing, because it does. It's Frozen Empire in a house. Yep. And that's not a bad thing.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
Yep.
Moving on to number 3. Michelle, would you like to continue talking about... With Chris's, please.
Ghostbusters. Yes, Chris's number 3 is Ghostbusters. Wow, what a fantastic job Universal did at replicating the movie. This house almost feels more like a park walkthrough attraction rather than an HHN house. They did a fantastic job at making you feel like you were walking through the set of the movie. Yep. Very true.
That's pretty much what we've just said.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would learn and do like a daytime house, like like Universal Hollywood used to have that House of Horrors or whatever it was, and then they changed it into Walking Dead. I wish Universal Orlando would do something like that somewhere and just have a scare attraction open all year round that they could change out into. I mean, what a way to promote whatever films you've got going on, to promote your event. Just like Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem is the perfect way to promote Halloween Horror Nights to people who aren't. You tone it down slightly and you open it during the day, so more people are potentially going to try it in a less scary environment.
Yeah.
And then you might get more, not that we want more people at Horror Nights. Yeah, let's just shut up, shall we? Tracy, number 3.
Yeah. Number 3 for me is Monstrous.
Okay. The Monsters of Latin America will give it its full title.
Okay, yes. I'm sure you've all gathered I am all over the Latin American lore. I love all of the spooky things in their folktales. I mean, this was my most anticipated house. This was number 1 on my hype list.
Was it?
Yeah. I thought it was an absolutely stunning house. Again, I have gone completely blank. I couldn't tell you a single scare in it. I don't know what's going on with my brain.
To test you all to remember the names of the characters in there.
Not a clue. Oh, right. Okay, so I'm in the house now. That's okay. I'm in there in my head. It was colourful. It was bright and light in places, dark in places. It just looked like I would have absolutely adored it. Because we had, what do you call them? Skeleton guys? What's he called?
Oh, the entrance, selling the story.
Yeah.
Of, the introduction at the house was so good.
Yeah, and they had good use of one of my favourite props, I guess you would call it, where I think it was it a picture this time or was it a window? But it's the fabric and then the backlight it and it's got a scene behind it.
Like a picture. Yeah,
and I absolutely love that. I think it's brilliant. This house had good use of that. What did happen in this house? I only watched a walkthrough yesterday of it.
Oh, we had the I can't even remember. There was the baby eating woman.
all the dead babies.
Yeah.
They were my favourite bit. The big bird. The big bird guy.
The bird guy. Oh my God.
I wanted to bring him home. He is that whole thing. All the bird people, so cool. Yeah, just. I'd come out there just like my jaw on the floor and wanting to run around and do it again. Because it just looked so good.
Okay.
I'm sad.
So, my number 3, I'm going to continue talking about Monsters of Latin America. For how much, you all know that I adored Chupacabra from 2022, was that? Yeah, because the kids were with us, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That wasn't 2 years ago.
No, it was 2. We didn't go 3 years ago. We didn't go in 2021. That was the 30th anniversary.
It's been a very long year.
And I think when we did our hype list, I said, for how much I like Chupacabra, why would I not like that house times 3?
Yeah.
And it did everything that house did, but with different characters. I thought that, I wish we knew the name. Is it El Cibon was one of them?
Oh, that isn't...
I should shut up because I don't know. El Chupapapa. Anyway.
Chupapapa? Chupapapa? Is that Baba Papa?
I love the entrance into it. Felt very Graveyard Games, like you say,
Yes.
the guy with the skeleton mask on kind of narrating the story going into the house. I don't care about kids, so people eating babies, I'm all for it.
Wow, don't tell you wrong.
You know me, I wonder, Chris probably I bet Alexa walked into that house and no, and started crying. She was probably a mess in this house, to be fair. I don't what was the middle? I can't remember what the middle one was. Come on, Michelle.
The names are all so weird.
But what is there's obviously the bird thing.
That was towards the end.
What was the middle one?
That tall guy.
Oh, yes. So, the guy at the front was El Muerto. So death.
Dead, yeah.
Tehalapuchi.
Twelpucci. That's the one that eats the babies.
La Lechuza and El Cibon. So El Cibon is the bird woman thing.
El Cibon's the bird. Okay.
And La Lechuza.
I don't know. I thought El Cibon was the tall guy.
Let's have a
Yes. El Silbon's the tall guy.
look. Okay.
La Lechuza is the bird.
All right. Well, we're terrible.
Don't say we do not drag
Well,
me
you
into
didn't
that.
know either. You just sat there in silence.
Because I don't know, and if you don't know something,
so
you don't say anything.
know.
Yeah.
La Lechuza's lair, where she is shown in her full size, she is seen eating the
Which was
limbs of her
amazing.
victims as
Yeah.
she screams in triumph.
That animatronic at the end was phenomenal. I like to say, I love this year that they're using. There's more, even with the static figures. There's still some movement to them. Rather, I mean, I remember going back to 2019 where we complained, especially in the Stranger Things house, of how many just static figures they were, and there wasn't many this year at all. Even if it was just an actuator or some sort of thing making it move, just to give it a bit of energy rather than. But this house was like, I feel like I can't even talk about it that much because I just remember watching the walkthroughs going, I would be all over this because it's just exactly what I said, Chupacabra times 3.
Yeah. I also do want a plush of whatever bird woman's called.
La Lechuza.
Yeah, I want a plush of that.
I mean,
I think that would have been a very good seller.
Michelle.
Yes. My number 3 is Slaughter Cinema.
Okay. Did you get to go through the first one?
Yes.
Did you do it with your eyes open?
No.
It's like he knows himself.
This one I did, though, and I loved it. It was so freaking fun. Like, this house was so fun. So the first time I went, on Premium Scream Night, I went through it one time, right? And fine. Went through it a second time almost immediately. And the second time I went through, the first house is that Mardi Gras, whatever it's called, massacre.
Yeah.
And there's a guy drunk out of his mind sitting on a couch.
Vomiting.
Yeah. So and keep in mind, this was Premium Scream. So it was just me, Krissa, and our friend Mandy. So we walk through, we can take our time and stop wherever we want. We walk through, we stop right there because we know that the Mardi Gras guy is going to jump out and kill him. So we're just standing there watching. And the guy does his like drunk thing, where he kind of wakes up. And the first time this happened, nothing happened. Like nothing happened to us. There was no water effect at all. This time we're just literally standing there. The guy does this like dry heaving and then all of a sudden stands up and spews all over us.
Nice.
I'm talking an enormous amount of water.
Awesome.
Right in our faces.
Wow.
Shocked. I was shocked because literally we had just gone through and nothing had happened. So we're just standing there and get sprayed all in our faces like, what is happening?
Yeah, I'd had a few more pints since the first time you went through.
I guess. And then the Mardi Gras person jumps out and kills him. It's fun. But like every single movie in that house, we were able to stop and just watch. And it was so freaking awesome. It was so great. The stripper mummies, my favorite. The second time we walked through that one, of course, Krista was like, Mom, what's happening? So the second time we go through and the mummy, like Krista's like, woo, I love this. And the mummy actually like comes down from the stage and is like getting really close to Krista.
Wow.
It cracked me up. Oh my God.
If Krista ever becomes a stripper, you know who to blame.
I know. As long as she's a mummy stripper, it's all good.
A few wraps of bandages covering her modesty.
Exactly. No, this was just a really fun house. I loved like the rock and roll skeleton guys.
Yeah.
I need more of them. I don't know if that needs to be a show or a scare zone or their own house, but I need more of them.
I think a scare zone would work really well for that.
A show too. Like if they actually if they could get pangolin and dress them up in that stuff and put them on a stage like in front of Mel's. Yes, please.
Do you know, I second that.
If that ever happens, you'll lose a co-host as well, by the way.
Nah.
No, you won't be allowed to.
He's a lifer. No, it was so good. I loved this house.
Interesting. It's funny how, again, like I don't know whether the disparity of going versus not going is making a difference. But moving on, Jesse, will you read? Will you carry on?
And we're going to carry on. Yes, Chris's number 2 is Slaughter Cinema 2. Before walking through this house, I wondered if they'd be able to capture that same magic that the first one had. They absolutely did. I wish I could have gone through a few more times so I could fully appreciate each room. Can't wait to see which houses spawn from this one in the coming years.
And that's the thing for me. It was each room. It was 2. There wasn't enough of each one.
Yeah.
If they'd have done 2 rooms
Tasters.
per thing, I think it would have hit better. But it was just a bit jarring for me.
Well, it isn't your moment, so there you go.
Tracy, your
Yes.
number 2.
My number 2 is Goblin's Feast. Yeah, I am gutted I haven't got to go through this one because it's everything I love in a house. It was loud, bright, colourful, busy, funny, some great gags, campy, and just... that's the best way I can verbalise it. Every time I've watched a run-through of this, I've had a big grin on my face because it just looks like it's an absolute blast going through. I can't imagine anybody having a bad time in that house. And considering it in my hype list, it was number 9. It's, yeah. I want to go and do Goblin's Feast. Have we got time to go?
Unfortunately not, no.
Damn it. Can we have Goblin's Feast 2 then?
Just hop on a plane right now, Tracy. Come on over.
Yeah.
Continuing on with my number 2, it is, and this was so hard. I think any other year, this probably would have been my number 1. A Goblin's Feast.
Wow.
It from my first run through, so my second watch through, it went from 4th to 1st. It was my number 1 after our second watch through. It's
my number 2.
I think
my number 2 all the way
it's that
through.
anticipation thing that when we talked about it for our hype lists, it's like it felt very Spirits of the Coven, and we were like, we know how that went, and it wasn't good. But I know a lot of other people, like, it kind of sounds like a sort of next step on from Dueling Dragons last year. And like, I can see that, but that didn't really do it for me last year either.
Oh no, I mean I loved that, but this is a different league.
From facade right the way through at the end, it was so well themed. I mean, the fact that there was a water wheel in the middle of the house, like a full size. Like Michelle, you talk about big moments.
Yeah.
That was the one in that one. The big water wheel in like the middle of the goblin village was so cool.
Yeah.
I love that every goblin was different. It would have been so easy for them to just have generic goblin masks and them all looked the same, and they didn't. Every single goblin in that house was different.
Diversity, we applaud it.
It was just so good. I loved the like the cages later on where you had the actual like people going, let me out. And then obviously the MVP, the guy at the end, was just...
Right, he needs to be a walk around character to have like meet and greet because I'd pay for that.
Phenomenal. It was just such a good house. It was amazing, and I am genuinely devastated that I'm not going to get to see it. Michelle.
It was good.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Monstrous. I really, really had fun in this house. It was gory. It was disturbing. Definitely disturbing. I loved all of the different monsters. Like, it wasn't just one house. Like, Chupacabra was based on one legend. This was several. So it was very interesting. The transition between the baby eater, whatever, Tualhepuchi, whatever her name is, and El Cibon was very jarring because I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or what, but like that first El Cibon got me every time because again, it was a jarring transition. I didn't expect him to another person to be there. And then the giant animatronic bird was crazy. The giant witch's face that came out at you at one point was very cool. I don't know. It was just a really cool, very well done. It looked like to be a very expensive house for them to build.
Yeah.
With the amount of like stuff they put in there. There were some good jump scares that got us, some creative ones, and this was Chris's favorite house. Like, she was terrified going through it. It was great.
It's interesting for how much you didn't like Chupacabra that you like this one as much as you do.
Because the Chupacabra just wasn't scary. He just looked like a little weird puppy dog or something. I don't know
what puppy dogs you've seen, but he didn't look like any I've seen, but all right.
No, I mean, he wasn't, the Chupacabra just wasn't scary. and there were not enough like chupacabras, but these characters
Yes.
were like, except for the big giant bird animatronic, the others were like actual scare actors.
Yeah.
So
That's what I was going to say about A Quiet Place earlier, Tracy, when you were talking about it, for how many aliens there was in that house compared to how many chupacabras were in the chupacabra house. It was night and day. I think there was 3 chupacabras in the chupacabra house. Maybe
But
4.
chupacabras are very, 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 very rare. Just to point out.
Not on the night of chupacabra.
The night of chupacabra.
I don't know what it is. They're celebrating the night of chupacabra.
Chupacabra night.
Yeah. Okie dokie.
I was going to say something like, that's just a thought that's popped into my head. Did we have 3 legends mashed together because there isn't enough lore to create a big house, or is this going to be the last Latin American folklore house we're going to see?
So I think there's one, they did one out in Hollywood a couple of years ago, El Cucuy, which is the
yes.
boogeyman. We haven't had that one in Orlando yet. They also did Monstrous 2 this year at Universal Hollywood, so probably not.
Good. Okay. Because I'd be sad.
I liked this one. I liked this one a lot.
La Llorona, but I think
We've had
Michelle,
La
have they done La
Llorona.
Llorona in Orlando?
I thought we had.
I think so.
Yeah, I thought we did have
I think so.
It was a year we didn't go. It was an off year for us.
I mean, there's a lot of off years, to be fair.
I think it wasn't La Llorona the year before lockdown. It was either 18 or 19.
I didn't go through it.
23.
What year was that?
2013.
I'm only a few years out.
That was the year they did American Werewolf in London the first time. Anyway, moving on to our number 1, and this genuinely has shocked me. Michelle, will you read Chris's number 1 out, please?
He must be sleep deprived.
He is.
Out of his mind.
I mean, he is,
All right,
yeah.
Chris's number 1, if you haven't done the math yet, is A Quiet Place. He says, I absolutely loved this house. Having only seen the first one so far, yes, the other 2 are on my list. It's a fantastic franchise. I knew what to expect story-wise, but it's been a long time since I watched that movie, and this house did an amazing job at telling you the story through visuals. It also reminded me of how eerie and dark that movie was. It brought a sense of fear as if I was in the movie. Tons of jump scares, tons of animatronics and puppets. It was just a 10 out of 10 for me. I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Chris always manages to pull something out that's completely out of left field to everybody else.
It's usually me that does that,
He does.
He does. I'm still going to go back to Depths of Fear at 2019. Like, how the hell did you have that so high up, sir? Tracy,
Yes.
you're number 1.
I'm sure you already know.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Why? Ghostbusters. Oh my God. Ghostbusters. Huge fan of the franchise. This did everything that you could ever want from a house. I don't think I watched any runs through of this without the biggest grin on my face. It just ticked all the boxes, and boxes I didn't even know needed ticking. I absolutely adored it. The one thing that I didn't like, and you mentioned it last night, was the Slimer. Which it's a great idea, having somebody in like a black bodysuit with the upper half is Slimer. But the sleeves didn't fit properly. Yeah, the sleeves only kind of like just went over the elbow.
Yeah, it was weird.
And also because you could see from the waist, like the hip area. Because we see Slimer basically in a bigger pile of sweet wrappers.
Like a trash pile.
Yeah, that could have easily been a moving thing attached.
Yeah.
To disguise that. But aside from that, I just flipping loved every bit of this. Like you say, I mean, even James Acaster, it just hit all the sweet spots for me. And genuinely devastated. And like you said, the what's the cold room? What's it called? That room was just...
The first one was like back in like 1930 or whatever it was. When
with the freeze that comes in. But little things, I know it's from the film and everything, but just seeing like the snapped off hand on the handle of the gramophone. Awesome. And
it was really good.
Just so well done. And what was he called? I can't never pronounce his name. Garaka. There was a couple of those. And one of them, it was obviously an actor in a suit. I don't know whether they were on stilts on a platform or what, but... he came out of that wall in that room and it just seemed so imposing. I think I would have actually had a little jump and maybe a little wee. And
Okay.
yeah, and I love the fact that was that final scare. You get into that safe point, you threw you out, and bam. Oh, that's always one of my favourite scares, seeing people like fall at the wall on the opposite side.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I'm absolutely devastated to have missed.
Oh, I'm surprised.
So you two go and talk about the same thing.
Spoilers. I'm sure me and Michelle are going to talk about the same thing. My number one, it was always going to be, and I think this is the first year where my hype list number one is the same as my actual number one. And that is Insidious Into the Further. It was just everything that we've already talked about with you and Chris. I think what a lot of Halloween Horror Nights houses suffer from is they front load the scares in houses. So we've mentioned it already tonight, Spirits of the Coven. The first half of that house was all right. Second half was terrible. This, they did it the other way. Not to say that it was empty first half, but the facade was great with the Lambert's house, with the ghost guy walking back and forwards across there. I wish they'd have found, we talked about, I wish they'd found a way to have him, like two actors the same, one outside and one inside, so you could have done that transition, would have been cool. But then the fact that you got like the house ghosts before you moved into the further was so good. And there was so many red-faced demons in that house. And you hit that curtain corridor at the end and it was literally bam, 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 bam. And I think I would have actually got a scare in this house because it was so...
You did, watching it.
That's true. So balls to the wall. That final, I think they knew what they had going into this, and they knew they had to really knock it out of the park. Because look, I've said Insidious at 2015 is probably in my top 5 of every year I've been. It was phenomenal, and then to give me this in a year that I'm not there, it was the one during our hype list that I was like, this is the one that I'm absolutely devastated that I'm not going to get to go through. And then having watched walkthroughs of it. This will forever be in the same bracket as Scarecrow the Reaping of that one house that I'm like, I'm never going to get to see it again. And that's the thing about Halloween Horror Nights. It'll come in one year and then you'll never see it again, and it's devastating. Yeah. It was just phenomenal.
It was. So, as you know, this is also my number one. And it has been since night one. It never moved. So Premium Scream Night. Oh my.
Yeah, I can well imagine.
Oh my God. Going through this for the first time ever with only you and 2 other people. Terrifying.
Wow.
All of us ended up on the floor several times throughout the house. It was so good. It was so good. Oh my God. And I am a huge fan of the Insidious franchise. Yeah. So like, I felt like I was at a rock concert seeing these demons. I was like, they would jump out and scare me, and then I would turn around and be like, yay! Like, I love you. It was so good. And then, so during our private RIP, we ended with this house, and we went through back to back, I believe 5 times.
Wow.
Back to back. That's how we ended the night.
That's the way to do it.
I've never done a house more than twice in a row.
It was so good. And my whole party, they were all, I said, do we want to go, we have like 20 minutes left, 25 minutes. Do we want to hit a couple of other houses, or do we want to just do this one over and over? And they're all like, this one's fine. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. But that section with the curtains.
Yeah. And they had it set up where they could come from literally anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's
anywhere.
Yeah. The problem is I noticed it a lot through watching these walkthroughs, even more so, I think, because we're sat passively watching it. The boo holes are so obvious.
Yeah.
When they do it
in this house as well.
No, at Halloween Horror Nights. If you're
just
walking,
in general.
Those boo holes are so obvious. Yeah. It is untrue.
There was something you said about this house, and it was a curtain, and it was, I forgot the name.
Oh, yeah.
And where she pulls,
the Black Bride.
Yeah, where she pulls the curtain up. The curtain
was... I think it was like a photo printed of young Josh, but it was on like a plastic curtain, and you could see already, even on opening night, where it had creased, where the scare actor was pulling it open, so you could see that that it was already a curtain to get pulled.
But going through the house itself, like you're not going to notice that.
No.
The general person is not going to notice that. But oh yeah, that one like dropped to the floor scares you because you're not expecting it. The curtains, like you said, even going through it back to back to back, you still don't know where they're going to jump out from.
Yeah.
And that whole section, I don't know if you could tell just from watching a video, but it was very tight.
It looked it.
I mean, I could not put my arms out to my sides without touching the curtains. So it was very tight. You could not get away from it. And they were coming at you from both sides.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was.
That's what she said, by the way.
Yeah.
It was so good. And then like there were some wallpaper scares. It was just, I loved it. So my last run through, I literally was trying my best to go slow because I wanted to see every single demon.
Yeah.
And that one, the big one under the organ, the main red face demon when he comes out, I was going as slow as I possibly could without getting in trouble. I was like, please, I was yelling. I was like, this is my last time. Please jump out. And right as I was about to have to be pushed out of the room, he jumped out right at me. And
Awesome.
I was like, yay! I love you.
That was us going through Yeti, wasn't it? At like 2 o'clock in the morning, our RIP tour at 2019. It's like, there's no one else in front of us behind us. Just do what we want.
We were the last one. Last one through, and it was just...
Yeah.
We got... Yeah.
Oh, no. This house still at 2 a.m. had a wait of 60 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus. Where was this again, Michelle? Was this where Julian Dragons was last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mind, it would have only been a wait of 40 minutes if some group hadn't kept going round and round and round.
It was these yeah, that was the point. It was Michelle's group.
It was only RIP to us. That's the only house went.
Sorry, guys. Someone wants to go through 5 times in a row. You'll have to wait longer. There was only like 20 people in the line, but because of them. So there you go. It's weird because this is the first year in like 4 years that we haven't actually been, and it felt it's like, I know I said for the longest time I wasn't that bothered this year, but from what I can gather logistically, they kind of figured it out this year. Michelle, I don't know what your experience is, but it sounds like they actually figured it out this year.
Houses, yes. Food, perhaps not.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I know.
Cumes.
Yeah, things were much better.
Yeah.
Those 2 new tent houses out the back, apparently, I mean, you talk about
so much better.
Yeah, it really looked it. Like, I've seen videos and never seen that as rammed as it was that night we did The Last of Us out the back there, which was a show last year. It really was.
No, it was so much better. The way that they have those 2 houses that enter next to Men in Black, and you don't have to exit all the way to go to both of them. Ugh, nice. I've been saying that for years. Like, why do we have to exit all the way out of ET and then go all the way back in?
Yeah.
Like, that's stupid. So this was much better. And then also that cut through the Simpsons queue. Phenomenal. Yep. So good.
Yeah. See, they listen to us and do it the year we're not there.
Yeah. Of course.
Anyway, that is going to wrap up our look at the Halloween Horror Nights houses from this year. Of course, don't forget, we still want you to get involved. Our listener rankings are still open. If you don't agree with where we had them, then you can have your say. Just send us in your rankings this year. Like we have 10 to 1. You can email them to us at podcast@uuopodcast.com. And of course, we still want your Freeze Ray Pops recordings, for which that gets your lick. And of course, your How Bad is Fast and Furious Supercharged jokes. And you can also send them to podcast@uuopodcast.com. But until next week, ta-ta.
Are you insane? Get out of here. The curse, it's real. The podcast is over. So, the Magi want you to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, TikTok, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. For all the podcast news and articles, check out our blog at uuopodcast.com. Contact us by emailing us at podcast@uuopodcast.com. And if you want to join the Producers Club, email us at uuopproducers@gmail.com. Silence! With your subscriptions, we shall rule for all eternity. Listen and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Not even the Magi can save you now. There is no escape. Your end shall be my beginning. Prepare yourself for your next trip by emailing Michelle at portkeyvacations.com. She can take care of all aspects of your next Universal Orlando vacation. We hope you enjoyed your podcast. Please remain seated and keep your arms and legs inside the Prepare to Forfeit Your Souls. Check out the other podcasts on the UUOP network. Rush of Fear Halloween Horror Nights podcast, the theme park duo for all your West Coast news and info, the Taste of Universal Orlando Food podcast, and the newest podcast on the network, the Portkey Passport, our Disney-centric podcast. So hey, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I would have enjoyed this podcast a lot more if I had gotten my cup of coffee.